hopefully this will, record and, people will be able to hear me. But it's 2:21 p.m. I don't have any makeup on. I'm sitting upright in my, Echo? Stop. I'm sitting upright in my bed because I figured I'm trying to balance unemployment, like finding a job, with self-employment, which is hard. And my sleep schedule is kind of erratic, and that's okay. I think it's what I've learned from healing is it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be what society expects you to be, and just to be yourself. And I don't want to wear makeup all the time. And I also thought about it, like, even in, like, relationships, I always thought, I'm like, oh, wait, so am I going to have to wear makeup to bed and when I wake up in the morning? And that's not realistic. So I'm trying to be as true and as authentic as I can be to help other people step into their authenticity. But yes, so this is going to kind of be like, I don't know, maybe like a vlog, but also kind of just talking about from like the whole, what I tried to do, the Let's Talk series, which is kind of talking about things that make us uncomfortable or make this brighter, may feel kind of, disconcerting or anxious to talk about different things. And the thing that I wanted to, and I am sitting up in my bed, I do have my covers over my lap, and the thing I wanted to discuss, I haven't read the book yet, and I've been kind of like, should I read the book and then talk about it? Which is the let them theory. It's this idea that basically you can't control people, right? You can't control what anyone says or does about you. And, you can influence people to the best of your abilities, meaning like, I don't know, you can act a certain way, you can try to be persuasive or influential in that manner, but you can't necessarily force someone to do something unless you're grooming them. But that's a whole other topic for another day, or another time. But this is more in general just the idea of it. I can look it up. I don't like to give wrong information. Let them theory. I actually have a sticker. I forgot where I first heard about this, but I did get the sticker on my computer. It says let them, like, meaning let people do what they want to do, and I'm kind of coming at it from the perspective of bullying, meaning like, you can try to be because I was bullied. I still am being bullied. It's like the most bizarre experience of my life as a 33-year-old woman. And these are not children. These are like grown men, possibly in other countries. And maybe even corrupt government officials. I don't know. It kind of goes back like a few years before. I just did a vlog on it, kind of giving a little like snippet into my story of what I've gone through. And yeah, but I wanted to touch on this topic because it's apparently it's a bestseller. Mel Robbins is, I think, Tony Robbins' wife, from what I understand. But it says, when you let them do whatever it is they want to do, it creates more control and emotional peace for you and a better relationship with the people in your life. Set yourself free from the exhausting cycle of trying to manage everything and everyone around you. She has like a podcast. She has the book. And so it says that the summary is, it encourages individuals to stop trying to control others and instead focus on their own actions and reactions. It suggests that by detaching from outcomes they can't control, people can experience less stress, frustration, and emotional investment in situations where they can't influence the choices of others. The theory revolves around the idea that we often waste time and energy trying to force others to conform to our expectations or desires. Instead, it suggests letting people make their own choices and live their own lives, as we can't control them anyway. It gives them emotional freedom. By letting them, you free yourself from the emotional burden of trying to control others and focus on your own life. This can lead to a sense of peace and detachment from outcomes you can't influence. Number 2, you focus on yourself. The theory encourages self-reflection and focusing on your own decisions, actions, and reactions rather than being overly invested in what others do. Number 3, not a free pass for bad behavior. It's important to understand that let them, quote unquote, doesn't mean you should tolerate toxic. See, this is the point of contention where I kind of was wondering about this. It says it's important to understand that let them doesn't mean you should tolerate toxic behavior or disregard your own boundaries. It's about recognizing the limits of your control and focusing on what you can manage. Last one, it offers different perspectives. While the core idea is simple, the interpretation and application of let them can vary. Some see it as a way to detach from situations and protect your energy, while others may view it as a way to avoid responsibility or confrontation. And then it says, does it really work? It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's really this idea, I guess, of shifting perspective. I don't want to speak too much. I can't speak to it too much because I haven't read the book. But what I can say is that when you stop caring about what other people think of you, you give yourself the emotional freedom of stepping into your authentic self. I think a good example of this, I'm going to use a few examples, but the first one is growing up Christian or Catholic, and I have a video about this. Intimacy was something that I literally thought was sinful. I thought sex was sinful, hooking up with people was sinful. Now, granted, I think engaging in it in an overly zealous or gratuitous manner, meaning like hooking up with a bunch of different people at the same time, is the same thing like someone engaging in profuse drug use or alcoholism or even shopping. Like, I love to shop. And I have to remind myself, I get all these emails that I'm signed up for like, and I try to actually unsubscribe from them. And, and I realize after going through trauma, I don't want to fill a void up or try to evoke fun, I guess, by shopping, because I do love to shop, but not like high-end stuff, like luxury stuff, just like, I don't know, like the knickknacks here and there, or if I get a really good sale, like, I'm such a sucker for a good sale, it's horrible. I'm like literally the perfect consumer, because like I'm the person that's like, no, I don't want to shop, and then I'll go ahead and, buy something that's like on sale, or they'll reel me in with a sale or like a free trial of something, and then I'll realize, oh, I like this after the free trial, and then I'll want to continue it. But anyways, I digress. But yeah, this idea of what I like to say is, which I was going to get to, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, in terms of like detachment, meaning you're not so obsessed with the outcome of something that you're more like grounded, and you're like, if it works out, great, if it doesn't, then whatever. But in relation to me, I would say I used to care a lot about what people thought in terms of just everything, I guess. I always wanted to act in accordance with what other people wanted, like even down to like working in like a hospital or as a server or as a teacher. I would sometimes almost, not shapeshift, but is the word acquiesce, but I would try to appease people by agreeing with them. Like, let's say, like, it was that bad, which is the idea of, like, a people pleaser, right? The chronic people pleaser, which is, like, if someone said that they liked punk rock ska music, right? In order to be liked, I would have been like, oh my god, which I really do actually like punk. I don't listen to it avidly, but I do like punk rock music, and, like, old school, I'm talking old school punk rock, like, Sum 41, Less Than Jake, All Time Low, Forever the Sickest Kids. Panic at the Disco isn't really, I don't think that's considered punk rock. Anyways, my point is that I would adjust myself to make other people happy. This led to a lot of just inner turmoil for me, because I, and even for me with my parents too, like my family, I was very much, I prided myself on being the good girl, the good daughter. I barely cursed growing up. I didn't start cursing or using swear words until, like 20s? My late 20s? I think. And granted, it's not that classy to be like, fuck this, oh shit, you know, it doesn't, it's a potty mouth, right? And you say curse like a sailor, that's kind of like, I'm trying to be more mindful about it because I do want to be classy, but you can also be sassy too. I think there's a time and place, and I think there was a scientific study that said saying the word fuck is actually like cathartic and therapeutic. I forgot where I read it, but it did say that. But yeah, going back to the let them theory. My biggest point of contention with that, and one of the reasons why I was like kind of reluctant to even read the book, was because I go, well, if you're letting them, then does that mean you're allowing someone to walk all over you, right? I was the chronic people pleaser. I was the one, for lack of a better word, a doormat. Literally, I would be the one to like never speak up. I was very mealy-mouthed, non-confrontational. I'm like the complete antithesis of that now. Like if someone, I have no problem now speaking up or cutting someone off completely out of my life. Like completely. Like cold turkey. Because when you have respect for yourself, like self-respect and self-love, that means you're less willing to tolerate things that don't align with you and your core values, right? It could be within dating. I've done this numerous times at a job, which you might say, oh, but Ashley, you're unemployed right now. Like, beggars can't be choosers. No. I'd rather be unemployed and struggling in strife and getting multiple calls a day, hey, you need to pay your bill, than be at a job that is dead end and the coworkers are catty and petty and mean and I'm overworked and undervalued, because I was that person. And I was at one point gonna do the let them thing where it's like, okay, I'll just put up with it. And no, in my heart and my soul, it didn't feel right. So I'd rather struggle and get the late fees and have my credit score go down than be at a job where I'm not treated properly, where I'm bullied and harassed as a grown woman, mind you. I'm a grown woman. I'm 33 years old. And it's sad because usually the ones that are the nice ones are the ones that get picked on, because we're the ones that won't speak up, you know, that will stay silent because we don't want to, you know, make waves and stir the pot and ruffle feathers, right? And all those other analogies. But I will say though that there does come to a point where I have realized this, you have to let people be people, meaning you have to let them be who they are. And everyone is on their own journey in life. Meaning, like, you can't force someone to change or be the person that you want them to be. And this is really important too, especially like if you want to get really deep, like in relationships and stuff. That's the same thing. And there are people who, there's like the doers and the thinkers, and there are also people who I kind of consider are kind of the lost souls, the ones who are kind of just drifting in life. They don't really, there's actually, I was seeing it on the Flip app, there's a debate about an NPC and a main character. An NPC is a non-player character, they kind of just go with the motions of life. A main character is someone who kind of is a nonconformist, you know, they don't go with the status quo. They kind of march to the beat of their own drum. They're different, you know. You can see that there's something different about them. You know, they're not easily swayed. They have their own unique set of style and personality, and they don't conform to anybody else's, you know, demands or things like that, right? They're level-headed. They think for themselves. They're an independent thinker or a thought leader, right? And to me, I think if you're going to be someone that's the main character kind of person, right? Not like saying like, oh, the limelight's on me, like, look at me, attention-seeking behavior kind of thing, but more like I know myself, and I own myself, and I own my authenticity, that kind of vibe. So essentially, if you apply that to the let them theory, you're not going to be assuaged, assuaged by what other people, by erroneous, superfluous kind of, nonsensical, petty behavior. If you're someone who you keep your head held high and you don't, engage in cattiness, right? You already have an advantage over whatever it is. And if you're talking about in a relationship, I will say that if it comes to like a more personal dynamic, I feel like the let them theory would be it's a really good way to, in terms of having its philosophy or methodology of going about life when dealing with very casual relationships or like connections, like for instance, I haven't driven in a while, but like when I was in Miami, that people would get such bad road rage, I'd get nervous that they'd get a gun and like maybe pull out a gun and be like, shut up. And I think people do that, actually. And yeah, and let them theory would dictate like, okay, like let them person pass you and like honk their horn and beep at you. For example, I would consider myself a defensive driver, meaning when I did drive, when it was the speed limit, I went the speed limit. If it said 30, I would go 30. If it was 50, I would go 50. If it was 70, I'd go 70. Oftentimes when I'd get on the highway, when I was moving from place to place and I would rent a car, I cannot tell you how many times. And mind you, what I know about the streets is that if you pass somebody, the only time you can actually pass someone where it's legal is if the demarcation, the lines in the road are dashes, right? Like it's like dash, 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 versus like if it's a straight line, you can't pass that person. But in true unlawful, illegal fashion, you have people that go against the law. And I would go the speed limit and they would whoop, and often I'd get looks like, why are you going so? And I'm like, well, it's a speed limit, and this is where a true law-abiding citizen comes in. It's like, which, not to go off on a tangent, but it's like a truthful, honest person, they do the right thing when no one's looking. And it's pretty amazing, like, when you get people that, like, and here in Vermont, that when I first moved to Vermont, that happened a lot, and when I'd passed through New York as well, and Maine, and, like, they would legit, like, I don't know how many times I would get passed, and I'm like, or get tailed also. I've been tailed so much in the past 4 years, oh my god. And they're aggressive too. People, like, legit will pull up, or they'll do the one headlight thing, and I'm like, that's a little sus. Like, it's a little weird. And if you don't know what sus means, it's a millennial term. It means suspect. But they would literally legit pass around me, and I was just like, let it be, in the words of John Lennon, let it be. Because there's some things. There's also what song comes to mind. It's by Thomas Rhett. Reba McEntire's in it. It's a song called "Be a Light," and it says, there's a lyric that goes, "In a race you can't win, slow it down. Yeah, you only get one go around, because the finish line is 6 feet in the ground. In a race you can't win, slow it down. In a world full of hate, be a light. If you do somebody wrong, make it right." Something like that. But it kind of reminds me of, like, people are gonna be petty, really. And when I tell you petty, I mean petty to the point where they will make you go broke, unemployed, virtually almost homeless, and they won't give a shit about you. And if they can, they'll throw a bottle of urine and pee at you, which all of those things actually have happened to me. And I'm not kidding. I got out of at a rest stop, and I had a bottle of urine thrown at plates, thrown at the foot of, like, the car door. And I was like, what's that weird smell? And it was literally legit a bottled water filled with urine. Come here, baby. I'm not kidding. And this is grown men or women. And I've had it to the point where, I've reached out to various people that you would think, like, law enforcement, federal agents, because why not? Let's throw that in there. And I'm, still waiting to this day. Come here, baby. Still waiting to this day to, hear back. And hi, baby, good girl. That was a good jumpies. Bunny did a good jumpies. Are you gonna photobomb? Oh, she's gonna photobomb. Okay. But legit, I've actually gone through that. And to still be a smiling, kind, loving person after this stuff. And that's just like skimming the surface. When I tell you I've had rental cars tampered with, I've been to, when I was on the road trying to move from place to place, or I took day trips when I was living in Philadelphia. This was when I was driving back from Miami, Florida, Virginia. I rented it. There was no other car available. I had a pickup truck. And I was, here, baby, sit here. Where do you want to sit? Are you a photo mommy? ¿Qué tú quieres sentar? Here. You want to go here? Where do you want to sit? I'm sorry. My doggy, I love my doggy, so don't flash your butt. She's flashing her butt. I legit had it where I had a pickup truck, rental pickup truck. And it was, I believe it was tampered with because I don't know if the tire pressure was bad, but the tire light would come on all the time. And the rental, so when you get a rental car, they're supposed to vet that and like check it and assess it. I've had that tire pressure problems where I thought it was going to go flat. And then a really bad one was there was an actual legit gas leak. And I stop at a mechanic to go check it out. This was either in North Carolina or South Carolina. I can't remember which one. And legit, the guy looks at me and he's like, oh, it's an AC leak. And I read energy. I'm an empath. I'm intuitive. I could read people really, really well. Like to the point where I can be like basically like I should have been like in another life a forensic psychologist or a criminologist or what's it called? An investigator, racial profiler. Oh my God, a criminal profiler. And legit, it was like a gas leak, and the guy has the nerve to be like, oh no, it's your AC. And I was like, no, and literally I have a video of it. And it smelled of gas. And you know, gasoline, what happens is when it gets on the pavement and the light hits it in a certain way, it looks like oil. And it basically, the light hits it and it reflects on it and it looks like a rainbow kind of color. Where are you going to sit? Where do you want to sit? Pick your spot and sit there, please. So, this is, yeah. I've run, what else have I gone through? I was basically almost ousted and fired from a job, not really fired, but put on a performance improvement plan in a position that I loved back home at a hospital that I loved, and that kind of started the snowball effect of me trying to find, respite and solidarity and retreat in other places, and I couldn't, and I have had to practice this idea of detachment, of letting go, because in my world, in Ashley's world, anything is possible, right? Audrey Hepburn even says nothing is impossible. Even in the word impossible, possible is there, right? So in my world, people can change. In my world, goodness prevails. In my world, the truth wins. In my world, miracles can happen, right? Literally in the Cinderella movie, that's like the live action movie with Lily James and Richard Madden. Oh my gosh, they did a really good job, I have to say. Kenneth Branagh did a really good job. It's like one of my favorite movies to watch because also too I love the dress that she wears. It's so beautiful. Oh no, Bonnie's gonna. What are you doing, silly? What are you doing? Hold on. This is my dog right now. Legit, this is my dog. What are you doing? Hold on, baby. So, yeah, but in the movie she says she saw the world, not Ella, the girl, she saw the world not how it was, but how it could be. And, that's how I see it, that's how I go about life in the world. And I think of possibility. I have a very open mindset and opportunistic, but like not in a negative, like greedy way, but like a go-getter, like I don't stop kind of way. I'm sorry, I have to give my doggy kisses because she's so cute. There was a moment there that I thought I was going to lose my doggy because she wasn't feeling well. So every moment, even when she annoys me sometimes, I still am happy to see her. And I do give her kisses. I do give her kisses. So, yeah, I would say that, you know, I think it would work to an extent, the let them theory. I have to read the book more. I haven't, I mean, I have to buy the book, but I wanted to discuss this idea of letting them, meaning not letting what others say or do get you down. And I'm the kind of person where literally I take things so personally. Like when that plane crash happened with the people, like back in January, I can't even believe it's almost June. The year's almost half over, which is crazy. And when that happened, that hit me like a freight train. And because I feel horrible. Like, I hate when something tragic happens. It literally hits me like a freight train. 9/11, I was really young when that happened, but if I had been older and more cognizant about things and, terrorist attacks and whatnot, I would have definitely, I would have cried many, 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 many months. But I do think that you do have to practice a certain level of detachment in order to be happy, because, I've heard that saying that when you think a lot of people are thinking about you, they're not, if you think people are, overly concerned or they're, talking about you, maybe they are. If you're very intuitive like me and you sense ish, what I call ish is, ickiness. Ish is, shit, basically, but, ish, if you sense, that, going on, more often than not, it probably is. I do think as humans, and I wish this could be studied, I do think we have a sixth sense. We have our five senses, right, that are physical, but then I do think that there's this, intangible, metaphysical, supernatural, if you will. I don't even supernatural, but, non-physical way of sensing. And that's what psychic energy is. It's non-physical, but it's tangible in the sense that your mind picks up on it, your consciousness, right? But your physical senses don't. Or I don't know how to describe it. Anyways, my point in saying is she's showing me her belly and I can't help but. There is literally a troll. I'll talk about the let them theory. There was a troll who I posted a video of Bonnie, and the dude says, the dog's waiting to have her belly rubbed. You're not smart enough to rub your dog's belly. And I'm like, I don't know if I did a whole soliloquy or monologue to them. Anyone, by the way, if you ever troll me, I will not be a bully to you. I will probably go into this long monologue soliloquy about bullying and why it's bad and how you need to level up your level of maturity as said adult, because if you're behind a computer screen and you feel more powerful berating or negating somebody, right, then that just speaks to your level of maturity and lack of groundedness and emotional intelligence. So, also I'm a psychology major, so anyways, so yes, I will rub my dog's belly, and she does like it, right, belly, right, baby? So I am very cognizant of that if a dog's belly needs to be rubbed. Additionally, I do have a video. I don't know if it's I should title it "How to Deal with Trolls," because let me tell you, they're good. There are some people that are so effing good at hitting you where it hurts. Oh my god. I've been told, I have a perpetual troll right now, cyber troll, trolls plural, who, every day I'm basically told that, through my phone, hacking, right, that I'm autistic, apparently, or I have undiagnosed autism, which I find hilarious because, I'm pretty social. I don't have any, when you're on the spectrum, because I worked with kids on the spectrum, they do something called stimming, and that's when they engage in, a repetitive behavior that's really meant for, to help bring in sensory input, where essentially you, bless you, where essentially what you do is you, it's not really habitual. It's a neurological response to help bring soothing and comfort to aversive stimuli that a certain person has experienced. So clapping is one of them, head banging or knocking like this. I don't really do that. I do make eye contact, though sometimes I get kind of nervous if I'm meeting someone for the first time. Um, I don't have an obsession with specific things, because usually if you're on the spectrum, you have a, like for instance, there was a kid that I worked with, he loved trucks. He loved dump trucks, and he would watch YouTube videos on dump trucks on repeat, and he would line up the trucks in a certain format when he would play. That is what lends itself to autism. There is more high-functioning autism called Asperger's, which, people can function with, but I do have some in terms of like sensory things, but I've taken tests where it says I don't have that, but I have a perpetual troll saying that. I have another person, I guess, I don't know if it's the same person, insinuating that I have homosexual tendencies, apparently, that I don't know about, you know, which is interesting, because like the stuff will come up on my feed, basically, are you gay? The gay love story. I think what it is, I think they're gay. But I think I have a secret admirer, a hacker woman who, is un poquito slightly obsessed with my life, which is it's kind of scary when you think about it, but it's a little bit more digestible if it's a woman. If it's a man, whatever. But yeah, they're probably upset that I'm not gay or something like that, which I'm not. I very much like men. Even though I'm not homophobic, and I'm very pro LGBTQIA, but like, yeah. What else have I been trolled on? Yeah, it's mainly that, and that I'm also because I used to work in education and pediatrics, so because I've embraced my more, not say hypersexual, but more sensual side, I've decided to embrace that. I'm being the person, whoever they are, basically says I'm a bad teacher. Like the movie with Cameron Diaz, Bad Teacher. I'm taking it in stride. It's just petty, and there comes a point when I've done it, in case it ever becomes legal, I snapshot it, boop. But really, that really doesn't really do much, really, in a court. You can't really like say, oh, by the way, someone's hacking me, and they're hacking my YouTube feed, and these are all the weird. Even though there was pretty weird stuff, I will admit, on my feed. But yeah, I honestly just take it in stride, and, when you stay, I think it's from Natural Life, it says when you stay positive in a negative situation, you win. Because people, when you think about it, this is how I look at it, and this is kind of aligned with the let them theory, but just to give someone some perspective, if you're dealing with some people who are trolling you or bullying you, or, you have a husband or a wife that's like henpecking you, and you can't seem to get a break from it, and you're unhappy. Well, first of all, if you're in a marriage and someone's picking on you, or belittling you or making you feel small, I highly suggest you, I don't want to say step out of that marriage, because that's not a marriage, that's like a negotiation, that's like a civil, what's it called, a civil common law marriage or whatever. That's why I'm not married. That's why I don't want to marry anybody anytime soon, because you're going to be with them forever, and if you don't like them, like if they piss you off, like, you can be intimate with someone, but if someone pisses you off, like as a person, and your personalities don't jive, you will catch me dead before I will ever sign my name on any legal document, ever, until I know someone really, really freaking well. And I'm talking at least probably 2 or 3 years at most, and I don't mean like a situationship, I mean like not locked in, but like, dating, that whole thing. Men these days, I think they need a lot of stepping up to do, and I don't know if it's us as women because we enabled that, or what it is. Who knows? Porn is a lot more easily accessible now, and, and not to downgrade it, because I have watched porn, and I myself have been trying to, not say do porn, but like, engage in more, like, I don't know, what, like OnlyFans or whatever, but I realize OnlyFans is, does a lot of, some of it's porn, but anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent. My point is what I look at it like is, put it this way, you have 24 hours in a day, right? And you can decide what you want to do in that day, right? You can decide to volunteer at a shelter, um, plant a tree to help our ecosystem, foster a child, donate to a child in need in another country, right? There's actually ways you can sponsor a child in another country. You can do a research project. You can pet sit. You can cook. You can bake. You can start a YouTube channel. Whatever. There's so many things that we can do in this life. And to think, if someone wholeheartedly, right, this is the psychology behind it, right? The psychology behind a troll. The fact that they will take their time, their living, breathing time, and focus it on you, right? And undermining you, and plotting and planning and scheming ways to harbor ill intent towards you as a person, bro, that means that they're not well in the head, right? Because any other person who's a contributing member of society is going to engage in pro-social behaviors, right? They're going to figure out how to help their fellow neighbor. They're going to, offer up their time and services for something, right? Pet sitting, dog walking, babysitting. They're going to go to work, have a job, teach, whatever. There's so many things. And think, if someone has to go and devote X amount of time to their day to troll you, right? Yeah, you. That means that them themselves, out of everything they can do in their day, are deciding to hyper focus on you. Why is that? Why is that? That's probably because either A, you have something that they lack, right? And the only way to feel superior is by making you feel inferior, right? So they pick on you. They start lies, rumors, play mind games, get in your head. And it makes it, what even ups the ante even more is that if they're an adult in their maybe late 20s, 30s, 40s, God forbid, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they've lived life already, and they're engaging in what would be construed as what childish behavior from the standpoint of like a 10-year-old or 12-year-old. When you think of it, when you're a child or a toddler, let's go back to toddlers, right? The toddler era is, they say the terrible twos. That's one of the hardest eras for, I think, parents to deal with, because they're trying to navigate this newfound sense of autonomy. Because, just a little fun fact, toddlers, you know why they're called toddlers? Because they toddle. They're just learning how to gain their balance and their gait and equilibrium, right? So they're standing on their own 2 feet, because when in development you go from being, you're crawling, right, on the floor, and then you go to cruising, right, which when you grab like counters, and then you go to standing, right? What's really different from that, it's trunk control, learning to lift your head, and then you go rolling on from, if you want to know baby development, I studied OT for a bit, so it's, you go from, being able to be on your back to rolling over on your belly. Then you gain trunk control. You're able to lift your head up, and then from there, you can hold your head up with your hands, right? And then you go from there to being able, like I said, then you could sit up without support. It's usually by like a 6-month mark, right? An infant does that. And then after that, they're able to, stand, or cruise. They crawl, right? Then you go from crawling. To, you sit without support, and then you go to cruising when you're cruising on countertops. And then you go from cruising on countertops to standing, completely standing, right? And then when you're standing, you see a toddler, they're gaining their balance. They're like, what, And all the while, right? And there's a point that I'm making when it comes to adult behavior with this. Toddlers, they don't have the verbal output, right? They're learning, they don't know words yet, right? We teach them commands like, different things like that. And they're learning comprehension of how to comprehend behavior, right? And how to behave properly in society. And that's where us as adults come in, right? We are role models for them. But toddlers are literally, they're learning, the reason why they're called toddlers is because they're learning how to toddle, because they haven't established a strong sense of like balance and equilibrium yet, right? They waddle and toddle. And since also they lack frontal lobe, development, executive functioning, things like that, and logic and reasoning, and language is governed by, don't quote me on it, it's called Broca's area. So verbal output is minimal. It's very much like There's called oh my gosh, I'm trying to go back to my child development days. It's called telegraphic speech. There's is it telegraphic speech and holophrastic speech? But don't quote me on it. Yeah, the holophrastic speech. So is a stage in early child development where children use single words or short phrases to express complex ideas. So you say bottle. Bottle means I'm hungry. Feed me, that kind of thing. My point is that verbal output is limited, even though the input is there, right? But there's there's holophrastic speech, and then the next step in that is not telephrastic, I think it's telegraphic. Telegraphic speech. So that's when toddlers are able to put together, so between 18 to 24 months you're basically able to put two words together, like me, like bottle now, or me hungry, I hungry, stuff like that. But toddlers, since they don't have that ability to, right, express themselves in a full manner, right, as we do as an adult, they lend themselves, when they don't get their way or get what they want, they have a temper tantrum. And temper tantrums are basically when a toddler's brain is on fire and they don't know how to self-regulate, right? So when you think of infants, they cry and cry and cry and cry, and that's why you practice self-soothing. There's a reason why I mention this, because when it comes to bullies in adult behavior, these bullies are basically regressed in behavior so much that they've basically they've regressed to acting out as like a toddler would, right? When a toddler doesn't get their way, they act on a temper tantrum, right? They stomp, they cry, they yell, they rant, they rave, or if you want to take a step further and they enter middle school age, they scheme, right? You think of a kid who wants to get back at another kid, they'll put glue in someone's shoe, or put a whoopee cushion on a seat to make them sound like someone farted, right? Stuff like that, silly stuff. That's what an adult, a 30, 40, 50-year-old, 60-year-old man or woman regresses that much in behavior. Think about it, right? A normal, mature, level-headed, grounded individual, if they don't get their way in a certain say or matter, they don't go about trying to plot, plan, scheme, troll. They engage in mature, logical, formidable, authentic communication, right? Rational, logical. That's how you reason with someone, right? You engage in logical discussion and behavior. People that are trolls, they can't do that. People that, so when you talk about the let them theory, there's this idea of, what's it, there's that saying, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, or, I don't argue with idiots kind of thing. I was taught that when I was little. You don't argue with idiots. And it's been hard for me, especially because, for me, I've had to deal with this, like, incessant, perpetual, literally a stalker, or someone, hackers, plural, for X amount of years. And I've tried, I've gone to law enforcement, I've gone to, I was advised to go to this website where you basically put in, like, for federal crimes, it's called ic3.gov. And, how do you do a cyber complaint when you're talking about someone who, like, it's so hard, hacking is so hard to pinpoint and pin down. But, I've just learned to it's like when you live with, not to say it's bad, when you live with cancer, you live with, like, a parasite, you learn to live with it, you adapt to it, but you don't try to control it. And this is what I think Mel Robbins is the point is just trying to make. You don't try to control the person. When you try to control them, you're literally relinquishing all your energy to something that may seem basically inevitable. It's insurmountable in the sense that, because you're not their parent, I can't change that person. I can't change the person that decides to pass me on the road. I can only focus on, so what she's trying to say, the point she's trying to make is, I think, focus on your own behavior. Be proactive, not reactive. When you're reactive, when you're basically easily angered or short-tempered, you have a short fuse, anything could set you off, right? Versus someone who's level-headed and grounded and mature. Now there is a way to, I think, engage in healthy debate. I think because this is where the idea is, oh, but if you let them, you're allowing people to walk all over you because you're not standing up for yourself. No, I don't think that. I don't know if that's because she did say that you don't want to acquiesce in the sense that where you're like, you're like, oh, it's okay for you to bully me. No, it's not okay. And if I could become an advocate for an anti-bullying campaign, I will wholeheartedly embrace that. I was actually considering starting like I don't know, like a clothing line. And the reason why I got inspired, I don't even know how to make a clothing line, but like something like a stickers or something where to promote, people who have been victims of bullying or feel like not even like high level bullying. I'm talking like just every day someone who gets belittled or made fun of, like kids that have Down syndrome or adults with Down syndrome, people with autism, you know, homeless, if you're homeless, anyone who, because the thing is, when I would love to meet someone, I mean, especially when you talk about elitists and stuff, people that are really rich, that are very wealthy and affluent. Unfortunately, we live in a society not where where knowledge is power, but money is power. And the more money you have, the more powerful you are. And you have, because you could buy anything. You can buy people's thinking, essentially. You can buy someone out, right? And it's sad now that it's, turned to that, but, and there's a point I was going to make relative to that, but, it's that the underdog, the plebeians, right, as you call it, if you're talking about, like, the feudal system, feudal, right, in feudal times you had, like, you had monarchs, and then you had, like, the plebeians, right, the peasants on the lower part of the caste system, right, and or the feudal system, and the elitists are the ones who really do have a say in the way things go, right? Because they have the money, right? They dominate the control over different things because money talks, right? But and that lends itself to people being bullied in that respect, right? So I wanted to do something where people, who felt either less fortunate or feel less than or feel, at some sort of a disadvantage, or they feel like they were bullied, where I can help, support, people in that respect, because so many people are. And unfortunately, when you look at celebrities, especially, like when you see these people, and you wonder how in touch with reality they are, because they live such a different lifestyle, I always wonder how down to earth they really are, because they can literally buy anything they want. It's funny, like I'm sitting here struggling because I'm a victim of bullying, right? And there's people who are making money just by having a song being played, and they're millionaires, if not billionaires, And would they give a shit about what happens to me? Probably not. If I end up dead in a ditch, they'll be like, oh, we're so sorry, whatever, and then they'll move on. How many people get killed in a car crash or a plane accident, and we don't even get, like, it's an afterthought. The Parkland kids of the Parkland shooting, maybe some people still talk about them. I still think about those kids. I remember when that happened, I had a pair of shoes, just a side note, right, talking about my soul. When that happened, I remember I had a pair of either Keds or white sneakers, and and this makes me want to cry when I think about it, because that's the kind of person I am. I literally put the name of every single victim of the Parkland shooting on my shoes to remind myself to walk in their shoes. I did. I don't know if I ever told anyone that. That was in college, I think, when I was at Miami-Dade College. But I literally wrote the names of all the victims on my shoes to remind myself, on the bottom of my shoes and on the sides, because I said I wanted to, be able to have them live through me, their legacy, which I don't. It makes me sad when I think about it. But look, maybe the guy who was the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, maybe he was bullied. I also think he had mental health issues, but yeah. So going back to this idea of letting them and not acquiescing, because you have to, I think you should. It is okay to speak up for yourself, because as humans, God didn't create, like, we weren't created to be like, to sit back and be like, yeah, abuse me, right? I always go back to this. If I get angsty and I step into my power and my authenticity, I'm reminded. I don't know. I have to say, as I do it, associate as being a non-denominational Christian, but I will say that I'm not that avid of like a Bible reader. I can't quote the Bible. Does it make me a bad Christian? No. I don't think Christ or God would be like, you didn't read the Bible. You're shunned from, you're going to hell. I think there are some really devout Christians who are like, they go to church and they do whatever. I'm more of like a laissez-faire kind of, more keep it simple, I'll pray. Which reminds me, I need to put someone in my prayer box. I forgot who it was. It was somebody. Oh my God, there was somebody I was going to put in my prayer box. Oh, I'm not going to say who. I remember who it was. I remember. But yeah, I'm not going to go into who. But there was somebody I remembered. He had a very interesting story, and I was like, I need to put him in my prayer box. But I lost my train of thought for a second there. Oh, yes. In the Bible, there's this story of how they were using the church as like something with tax collecting. I don't know if it was tax, church. No, when Jesus turned the tables. Jesus turned over the tables. Matthew 21:12. Oh, those are double numbers. Like angel numbers. 20. So whenever you see like 12:12 or like 21:12, those are angel numbers. Jesus turned over the tables. In the Bible, Jesus turned over the tables of money changers and the seats of those selling doves in the temple courts. This event, known as the cleansing of the temple, is recounted in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Jesus' actions were a strong protest against the commercial activity taking place in the holy space, which he believed was being misused. So whenever I get, I'm like, oh, is it wrong to speak up? Is it wrong to necessarily make waves, right? No, it's not, because you're basically, when you stand up for yourself against a bully or a troll, it's your way of asserting yourself as a person, saying, I matter, and I have self-respect, and if you can't respect me, then you have no place in my life, and I will not tolerate that, right? It's your way of asserting your own dominance and divinity in yourself, right? Because if you hopefully you're not someone, if you're a woman, you watch this and you're in an abusive relationship or marriage, hopefully you have the emotional wherewithal and the strength to remove yourself. I will say I do think I have been a victim of narcissistic abuse, gaslighting, coercion, manipulation, maybe sextortion, grooming, sexual grooming, exploitation, and I think I've handled it in a rather mature, regal, almost regal manner. And this is coming from someone who was so reluctant and so reticent, and shy. And, if anyone asked anybody, oh, what was Ashley like when she was younger? They'll say, oh, she was the really sweet girl who was very quiet and, didn't really speak up that much. A good girl, too. She didn't really flirt. She didn't whatever. And it's so funny. I'm, like, not the complete opposite now, but I'm very much have gone in another direction of, like, when it comes to, like, sensuality and intimacy and stuff like that. And I wholeheartedly embrace that. And I'm not going to apologize for that at all. But yeah, I look at it like, if, being demonstrative and standing in your power is not a bad thing. I think there is a way to do it, a very professional, and I have done this in professional settings too. I wrote really comprehensive emails to leaders of organizations I've worked for where I felt like I was undervalued or wrongfully judged or mistreated. I've written, not soliloquies, but like, text messages to men that I no longer associate, whom I knew. I mean, you could say, I guess, psychologically abused me, gaslit me. Um, but I've grown, there's this Taylor Swift song, I got harder. What was it? I goes down and I got harder in the nick of time. Honey, I rose up from the dead. I did, whatever that's, oh, look what you made me, that song. Um, and there's a lot to be said for that, and especially a woman in this day and age doing that, you're also viewed as like a feminist. Oh, she's a feminist. No, I'm a woman. I'm a human. It's not, oh, she's a feminist. It's oh, I'm a human. I have rights, and I know in recent years, I've had my rights horrifically, terribly violated. To the point where if I had a good lawyer, I could probably sue the pants off of certain individuals. But I'm not really money hungry or greedy. At this point, you would think I should be, after being unemployed and, wrongfully, like, basically abused. But I always say there's that quote that says, girls seek revenge, women let karma do the dirty work for them. And that's how I look at it. I don't wish negative karma on people. And when it comes to trolls, Mel Robbins does have a point. Or people, just in life, you can't control them. You can't control your neighbor. I can't control what the people next door think of me. And it's funny, when I was dating and stuff, I decided to take a break from dating because I'm like, it's just, I have other things that need to take priority. I can't, and plus I don't have time to like raise a man child, Some of these men, bro, like they expect you to like, I don't know. It's the most like bizarre phenomenon ever. God forbid a man be like not overly forward, but take control. There's a guy. It's so funny. He does videos. He runs flags across his videos. He does like green flags or red flags, and it's so funny. There'd be quotes like, "Where's the red flag guy when you need him?" or "Where's the green flag guy?" But it doesn't speak anything to me because they say, "Oh, you attract what you are." I will say I am an empathic person and compassionate, so empaths attract narcissists like moths to a flame. So I've kind of just gone about it where I'm just going to do my thing, and if I happen to meet someone along the way, great. If not, I'm not going to stress over it. And yes, I am 33. I understand, the biological clock is ticking, but rest assured, I'm not really too keen on getting pregnant. I actually am trying to prevent that. Shout out to Natural Cycles. I actually need to buy my ovulation strips because they track your ovulation so you don't get pregnant. But I'm actually more keen on adopting a child or fostering one than producing one. Because I believe souls choose their family. The body is just a vehicle for which the soul is encased, and the physical being, yes, you have genetic material, you have genotypes, you have phenotypes and whatnot, and you have, Mendel and the squares, and whatever, I forgot what they're called. The little squares where they do genetics, But, anyways, but yes, I have, I've just decided that, when you let people do what they do, now I will say though, now, if it doesn't, no, there's, I think qualifiers. I wish, how people do in videos, like a little, like, text. I still don't know how to do that. I don't know how to edit a video and whatnot. I'm not a videographer, I'm not an editor, but, like, if I could put little bullet points, like, ding, 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 I'd be like, this is the criteria, ding, ding, ding. I think it's okay to speak up when you feel like your human or civil rights have been infringed upon. If you've experienced any sort of physical abuse, psychological abuse, or emotional distress, there's literally, you can have court cases and sue people for emotional distress. And I didn't know this until, like, I researched it, and until I went through what I went through. And I was like, oh, you can do that? And apparently you can. But yeah, if your human rights are infringed upon, if your civil rights are infringed upon, if you are abused in any sort of way, I do think it is very necessary to speak up about it, 100%. Like 100,000%, I think it's very important to speak up about it, because you are human, by law, especially whatever country you're brought into, or whatever. Let's like sneak a leg out over here. I'm wearing a night dress. This is a night dress. It is from Adore Me. Shout out to Adore Me, which I love. It got really hot because it's literally super hot right now because I have my heater on. I got so used to the Vermont cold that no, I'm like, I can't go without a heater. I just had a notion in myself. I go, I really hope the video records, because every time for some reason I record a video now and then it doesn't, it goes blank and it shows 0, so I'm hoping this records. Oh, you show your belly? Do you approve? So belly. So yeah, I would say that under certain circumstances where you're either physically harmed, emotionally harmed, like, where, like, put it this way, if it becomes legal to the point where, like, someone, like, let's say you have someone casing your home, or you have, I don't know, what's, like, another good example? Hi, Lady Bear. You have somebody, like, slander and defamation, you know, like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, that whole thing. I don't really know too much. I just know that, like, it was pretty nasty what they got in, like, that whole thing. But yeah, slander, defamation. Where do you want to sit, River? My dog's photo bombing. So yeah, I think slander, defamation, that's a non-negotiable. I mean, could think, like, if you, let's say you're somebody and you, let me put this like this. If you're somebody and you, get wrongfully accused of, I don't know, stealing, or, I don't know, lying, or falsifying, whatever, you know, I don't know, something, like, really drastic that could affect your, like, job security, your well-being, your family, everything, right? That is, like, that's grounds for, like, legal action, or, you know, ramifications. So yeah. And that kind of speaks to my situation, to be honest. I feel like I was, like, wrongfully, I don't really know what, but something. You know, I mean, if it's enough to get, you know, cops to tail you in your childhood city or home when you're not speeding and you have black, like, SUVs trolling you around you, yeah, that is kind of cause for concern. So, yeah, I would say, sorry, my hair looks like a mess, but, letting them, my theory, my quote, what I like to say is, you hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And if you ever feel like, you know, you feel awkward or off speaking up for yourself, don't, because you matter as a person, right? No one's gonna be your best advocate except you, ever. Like, I've learned that the hard way, and, I've grown and matured a lot. And, you know, I've been, you know, in my life, I've been waiting around for someone to, you know, give me the truth. And it's, people are, when it comes to truth telling, a lot of people are really, really, really afraid to, I've noticed people will literally either dumb down the truth or water it to fit their schema, right? I need a clip, really, sorry. I need a clip really quickly to fit their paradigm, essentially, right? People will, you know, because people, when you, especially when you know, when it comes to storytelling or whatnot, like, people will adapt their side of a situation to fit their schema or their paradigm, right? So it's digestible and feasible for them, versus actually saying what the truth truly is, right? A lot of people cover up the truth, they cover up lies, because sometimes the truth hurts. The truth can destroy systems and break down, you know, like, things, and expose things that, you know, people would otherwise go, oh my god, like, that happens. And so in that sense, letting them, it's not so much where you can go, oh yeah, I let them do that. No. If anything ever infringes upon your rights as a human being, if it intrudes or infringes upon your privacy as a person, that in itself is a lawsuit, right? You look at how many couples, how many companies, maybe that was a Freudian slip, who knows, maybe there's a couple that's, I don't know, trolling me. You look at how many companies disseminate private health information. You know, the Health Information Portability Act, HIPAA, right? That's in place to protect patients' rights and you know, private health information, the PHI, it's called PHI. how many companies disseminate that information, right? That's legal. That's a legality, right? Or a liability. So, things like that where you can't just say, oh, it's okay, yes, let them. No, it's not okay. Um, so if you're somebody like me and you've been someone who is a chronic people pleaser and you always had trouble setting boundaries, don't be. There are people, I promise you, who will push those boundaries. They will groom you for things like sex, exploitation, prostitution, drugs, gambling. Luckily, I've never done drugs. I will never do drugs. And my heart goes out to people that do drugs, because that becomes a biological dependence. Alcoholism, all that stuff. But I think that when it comes to standing up for yourself, whoever you are, you're going to be your own advocate. And I know I may look small. There's that quote by Shakespeare, though she be small, she is fierce, or something like that. Though she is small, she is fierce, or something. I have it as a bookmark. And it's true, because I may be small in size, but my heart is mighty, and my spirit is strong. And that's not something you want to fuck with, because when push comes to shove, and you put a troll, a petty, menial, bottom feeder, narcissistic troll up against an earth angel light worker who stands in her truth and is kind, compassionate, empathetic, that in itself is powerful. Love is powerful. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, whatever. No, it's the truth. So I will end up buying that book just to eventually, because I'm curious to see what she has to say. But you can let them. I think it's okay to let people, meaning she puts it from the perspective of releasing emotional attachment to an outcome or situation, because you can't, like in dating, you can't change whether a guy's gonna, oh my god, like when it comes to texting and a guy, I've been in so many situations where I match with someone and the guy just doesn't even bother to like initiate the contact, and I'm like, forget about it. I'm like, I'm not gonna even bother. I don't get annoyed by it anymore. I'm just like, okay. In fact, what I do is I say thank you mentally. I'm like, thank you for showing me who you are and making it easier for me to make a decision about whether or not you deserve a permanent residency in my life, or a place in my life for that matter. So, because the thing is, I tell myself I love myself either way, and I enjoy my own company. So, if you want to compliment my life, great, but I don't need you in my life. I want you, but I don't need you, because need comes from desperation and lack. Want comes from admiration and appreciation and value, right? So that's how I go about it. And I go about that for everything in my life. Whether it's a neighbor, a coworker, a job. If a job, like I've gotten so many rejection letters lately where I'm just like, oh, like I literally got one yesterday. And mind you, I got one from like a job that I applied to like months ago. And it's like, it was for something called Sprinter Health. And I'm like, and they're like, just whatever to tell you. We've decided to go. And I'm like, okay, boop, thank you. And I look at it like, what is for me will not pass me. And maybe the route that I think I'm supposed to be on is not really the route I'm supposed to take. So, I think our hearts, our souls know the trajectory of the life path in which we need to go, but our egos, don't know. And so demystifying and deconstructing that ego part of ourselves, right, what we call in yoga, right, the ego, the thinking part of ourselves, merging it to our higher self, our true soul self, that's key. A little bit easier, it's easier said than done, but don't let people bother you. And trust me, I think I've developed a pretty good balance of keeping my my trolls, my parasites at bay, because I think they know not to fuck with me, because I think on the outside I look very, small and, whatever, and tiny, but on the inside my heart is mighty. So I hope you can do the same. Peace. I'm gonna do the thing where you go